Online adultery is a form of emotional or romantic betrayal that happens through digital means, through text calls, social media, and messaging apps. It may not involve physical contact, but the emotional damage it causes is just as real and just as painful.
Let me tell you the story of Mira and Ravi. Mira is a woman in her 60s. She's been married to Ravi for over 3 decades. Their life has settled into a quiet rhythm: home-cooked meals, evening tea, phone calls from their children, and the usual ups and downs of long-term companionship.
But something began to change. Ravi, who had never been particularly attached to technology, suddenly became glued to his phone. He would sit for hours, scrolling through videos, laughing to himself, texting someone. Sometimes, he'd go into the other room to take calls. Mira noticed he was more cheerful after reading certain messages, but when she asked who he was talking to, he'd brush it off. "It's just a friend," he'd say. "Just someone from work. Don't worry about it." But Mira did worry. She noticed he would put his phone face down when she entered the room, or switch screens quickly. And more than once, she caught him watching videos of women dancing, or smiling at texts he refused to show her. She wasn't angry, not at first. She was hurt. She began to feel jealous, not of a specific person, but of a device. Her husband seemed more emotionally connected to his phone than to her. What Ravi didn't realize, or perhaps didn't want to admit, was that he had started forming an emotional connection with someone online, a woman he'd met through social media. Their chats began innocently enough, just friendly exchanges, but slowly they became flirty, personal, intimate. No, he hadn't met her in person. No, he hadn't had a physical affair, but his attention, his energy, his excitement, all of that had shifted away from his wife and toward this other person. That is online adultery. It's when someone in a committed relationship begins forming secret, emotionally intimate or romantic connections with someone else through digital means. This can include private messaging and emotional sharing, flirtatious or sexual conversations, sending or receiving inappropriate photos, watching explicit content in secrecy, giving more emotional energy to someone else than to your partner. In Ravi's case, he believed it wasn't cheating because there was no physical contact. But from Myra's perspective, the betrayal had already happened. The trust was broken. The emotional closeness they once had was fading, replaced by secrecy and distraction. Online adultery is dangerous because it often starts small. A message here, a compliment there. It feels harmless at first, but slowly boundaries are crossed. It becomes easier to share personal thoughts with a stranger than with your own partner. And before you know it, you've created a separate emotional life, one that excludes the person you promised loyalty to. And in many cases, the hurt it causes is as deep as, or even deeper than, physical cheating. Why? Because emotional connections are powerful. We bond through words, attention, and vulnerability. When you start giving that to someone else, your partner feels abandoned, invisible, and replaced. Mira eventually confronted Ravi. She asked him, "Why do you smile more at your phone than at me?" He didn't have an answer. He didn't want to admit that he had grown emotionally distant, but it was clear to both of them something was broken. Online adultery is real. It's not just about technology. It's about intention, attention, and emotional loyalty. If you find yourself hiding your conversations, feeling emotionally closer to someone outside your relationship, or spending more time thinking about a stranger than your spouse, it's time to reflect. And if you've been hurt by online adultery, know this: your feelings are valid. You're not overreacting. Emotional betrayal is betrayal. Relationships are built on trust, communication, and emotional safety. Without those, even the strongest marriages can fall apart. So if you're in a relationship, talk to each other. Stay connected. Share what you feel. And most importantly, stay emotionally faithful, not just physically. Because love isn't just about bodies. It's about hearts. And hearts can wander too, especially online.